So I've been going through the 8 verses of thought transformation, and today I'll do verse number 6, and that says, "When someone I have benefited and in whom I have placed great hopes hurts me very badly, I will practice seeing that person as my supreme teacher." So maybe you've had an experience like this in your life where you helped somebody and then later they did something nasty, hurtful to you. So I think when we find ourselves in that situation, it's pretty awful. It's pretty painful. And we might find our mind flooded with thoughts like, "I've done so much for you. How could you do this to me? You ungrateful, blah, blah, blah." And we might express those thoughts as well to the other person. And then they might respond in a not so positive way. Like maybe they get defensive and start throwing things at us. So there's, kind of ugly, nasty words going back and forth, and maybe other things as well. So the whole thing can turn quite unpleasant, nasty. And and then we suffer the consequences of that afterwards. So that's kind of the worst case scenario. Or we might just keep our mouth shut, but feel a lot of hurt and anger inside. And so if you've had that kind of experience and reacted in that way, then you might feel, no, that's not such a good way to react. I don't want to be that way. I don't want to react that way. And so here in this verse, the author, Langri Tangpa, presents an alternative, and that is to see them as a teacher. And he's not saying, this is what you have to do, but he's saying, this is what I do. And maybe think about doing it yourself. But how to do it? Not so easy. So I had an experience some years ago that was a little bit like this. I'd been helping this person, and I was happy to help this person. And then I found out about something he had done that wasn't so nice. It wasn't like really horrible, but it just wasn't a good thing to do. And so I felt, disappointed. And the next time we met, I asked him, is that true? Did you do that? And he responded in a kind of defensive way, as if, yeah, I did it, so what? I mean, he didn't exactly say that, but that was the way he responded. And so then I was really disappointed. I was kind of hoping that he would be apologetic and show some remorse. And, I want to be better than that. I want to do things differently, but he didn't. So then I felt, after that conversation, I had these thoughts in my mind, like, I'm not going to help you anymore if you're going to be like that. And I didn't feel good about that way of thinking. And so I sat with it and looked at my mind and, what's going on? Why do I feel this way? And so what I discovered was that I had had expectations of him, wanting him to be a certain way. I want him to be this kind of person and do things in this kind of way, and not that kind of person doing things in that kind of way. And he went against my expectations. He didn't do what I expected. He did what I didn't want him to do. And so then I asked myself, well, is that fair? Is that right to impose expectations on somebody else? I mean, I think we all do it. I think it's part of our way of interacting with other people, especially people we're close to, family, friends, and so on. And I think it's related to attachment. I think when there's attachment to a person, then unconsciously. I don't think we do it deliberately or consciously, but we just have expectations of that person. We expect that person to be a certain way that makes us happy. And it's very self-centered, of course. If you are like that, I will be happy. That'll make me feel good. That'll fulfill my needs and wishes. So it's very self-centered. And so this is what I saw in my mind, that, there was yes, I did want to help him and I did care about him and da-da-da, but a lot of it was about me, my needs and my wishes. And so, I saw that, no, that's not real love and compassion. The most ideal form of love and compassion and caring for others is unconditional. No strings attached. You just give, you do, you help without expecting things in return. Hard to do, but much more satisfying and brings about better results in the end. And one thing I did was ask myself how I would feel if I was on the receiving end of somebody else's expectations. If someone was being nice to me and helping me, but at the same time expecting me to conform to their expectations, and then getting upset with me if I didn't. I wouldn't like that. I'd be very unhappy. So, that helped me realize that that's not an appropriate way to be. And I think that even in the case of the person doing something that's non-virtuous, maybe even harmful, and you think, but that's going to make you suffer if you do that. It's going to make other people suffer. And I want you to be happy. I don't want you to suffer. I care about you. So you shouldn't do that. You should stop doing that. So there's some altruism there. There is some genuine concern for the other person's benefit. But that's one thing. One thing, it's one thing to wish the other person to not do things that will bring suffering, but to expect them is another thing, to have this expectation and then be mad at them, reject them if they don't do what we expect them to do. So that's one thing to look at and differentiate. So I think, the real problem is the expectation, that attitude of, I want you to be this way, and if you're not that way, get lost, I don't want to have anything to do with you anymore. So I think the best approach is to try to understand the other person, have empathy, understand what's going on with them, try to understand why they're behaving the way they are. And it could very well be because of afflictions, afflictive states of mind, attachment or anger or other delusions. And then think about that. And okay, so if the person's mind is caught up in these afflictions, we know what that's like, or at least I do. I know very well how that is, and it's very unpleasant. It's very, disturbing and troubling and not at all peaceful. And it's also very confusing. And sometimes you might even have in your mind, part of your mind is saying, I shouldn't be doing this. I don't want to do this. Isn't the right thing to do. But it's just so strong. It's so powerful. You can't control it. You find yourself just acting out these deluded thoughts. And then later you face the consequences of that. So if it's like that, and I think it was in this case, his mind just got overwhelmed by some afflicted states, and I'm sure he did feel some regret and had other problems as a result of that. So then, if that's the case, if you can understand that, then doesn't it make more sense to have compassion for the person? That they deserve compassion and reaching out with kindness rather than being angry and judgmental and so on. So thinking in that way really helped me to change my mind, change my attitude, and become more accepting of the situation and not angry at this person and continuing to want to help them. And so I learned a lot from that experience, even though it started off as something painful and kind of ugly, at least in my mind. But by contemplating, looking at my mind, my reactions, applying the Dharma, what I've learned about the Dharma, I felt that I recognized some mistakes that I made, and I probably still make, yeah, this tendency to expect things of other people. And yeah, thinking that way helped me to transform my mind and open my mind more, become more accepting of others, more loving and compassionate towards others, more patient, accepting. And so, yeah, I feel like I learned a lot, and I do hope that that experience will help me to avoid the same kind of reaction in the future. Yeah, if that ever happens again, to not react with anger, but to be more, yeah, accepting and caring, and even if there is some afflictive thoughts and feelings in my mind, to use the Dharma, apply the Dharma to them rather than to follow them. So in that way, yeah, this person was a teacher, teaching me some very, very useful, valuable Dharma lessons.